Pep Guardiola wanted him. Reportedly saw him as the man to one day replace Kevin De Bruyne. Paris Saint-Germain wanted him so badly, his own agent said a move was 95% done. Barcelona scouted him. Monaco sent people to watch him in the flesh. And not one of them signed him. This is a 21-year-old who scored 31 goals in 2 seasons as an attacking midfielder, and the richest, smartest clubs in Europe looked at him, nodded, and walked away. Not because he wasn't good enough. For a reason that has nothing to do with football at all. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why the best young midfielder in a country of 143 million people ended up not at the Etihad, not at the Parc des Princes, but in Istanbul, and why his transfer is really a story about an entire league that the world has agreed quietly to pretend doesn't exist. His name is Alexey Batrakov. And if you follow European football closely, there's a very good chance you have never watched him play a single minute. That's not your fault. It's by design. Here's what's at stake, and why this matters beyond one player. Since 2022, Russian clubs have been banned from UEFA competitions. No Champions League, no Europa League, which means an entire top-flight division, the Russian Premier League, a league with real money, real history, real talent, vanished from a European radar overnight. The players didn't stop existing. The cameras just stopped pointing at them. And into that blackout walked a teenager who started doing things that, in any other league, would have made him a global name by now. Now here's the rehook, the detail that flips this from a sob story into something stranger. Batrakov wasn't invisible. The big clubs knew exactly who he was. City, PSG, Barcelona, Monaco, they all looked. The tragedy isn't that nobody saw him. It's that the people who saw him and wanted him were not allowed to have him. There's a difference between a talent nobody noticed and a talent the whole system quietly agreed it couldn't touch. Batrakov is the second kind. And that is a far more uncomfortable story because it means the barrier wasn't his ability. It was his passport. Let's start with something familiar. You know how the modern transfer market works. A kid does something special in Portugal or Holland or Argentina, and within 18 months a Premier League club has paid 40, 50, 60 million for him. The pipeline is ruthless, and it is fast. Talent gets found, priced, and moved almost the moment it appears. That pipeline has one hidden assumption, that a scout can go watch the player, that the player can legally move, that the club can wire the money. We take all of that for granted. Now widen the lens. In February 2022, after the invasion of Ukraine, FIFA and UEFA suspended Russian clubs and the national team from their competitions. Sponsors fled. And a web of government sanctions, especially from United Kingdom, made transfers involving Russia a legal and financial minefield. Think about what that does. It doesn't just punish federations. It freezes individual careers. A Russian league player is now behind glass. You can see him. You can admire him. You cannot buy him, at least not easily, and in England effectively not at all. British media reported that UK sanctions made a move to any English club legally impossible for Batrakov. Guardiola's interest? Dead on arrival, not on the pitch, but in a lawyer's office. So this is the era Batrakov came of age in, a golden generation of one, developing at full speed inside a league the outside world had agreed to look away from. And here's where his actual story begins. He was born on the 9th of June 2005 in Orakovo-Zyevo, a town near Moscow. Middle-class family, both parents working. And here's an honest detail that tells you something about him. He was small. He's still small, 1.73 meters, 5'8". In a football world obsessed with physique, he was almost always the shortest kid on the pitch. His parents didn't start him in football. They started him in futsal, that fast, tight, small ball indoor game that forces you to think and touch the ball quicker than everyone around you. And in 2011, at just 6 years old, he trialed at Lokomotiv Moscow's academy and got in. He would spend the next 13 years at that one club. No moving around, no shopping himself to bigger academies. 13 years, one badge. Now, the unsanitized truth about youth prodigies is that most of them are frauds, brilliant at 15, gone by 20. Batrakov was different in a way the numbers make almost absurd. In the 2023 youth season, he posted 9 goals and 12 assists in 17 games and was named the league's most valuable player. Across his entire academy career, the encyclopedic records credit him with 63 goals and 68 assists.
На Баринову передачу. Баринов опять в который раз именно слева материализуется. Дмитрий Баринов. Есть партнера Батраков. Батраков! Батраков!
He wasn't a goal scorer or a creator. He was both, from a position that usually demands you pick one. But, and this is the part one want you to sit with, being a youth team god means nothing. Football is a graveyard of academy MVPs. The senior game is a different sport. When Batrakov finally made his Russian Premier League debut for Lokomotiv on the 31st of March, 2024, against Krasnodar, the only honest question was the one that matters for every prodigy. Does it translate? Watch what happened next. Because it didn't just translate. It exploded. In his first proper season, 2024-25, Batrakov scored 7 goals in his first 9 league games. 9 games. He briefly led the entire league scoring charts as an attacking midfielder, outscoring pure strikers. He finished that season as the 3rd highest scorer in the Russian Premier League with 14 league goals. They named him the league's Young Player of the Season, Player of the Month awards, the Under-21 First 5 award, where 98 of 105 expert judges voted for him. Then he did it again. The 2025-26 season, he opened with 6 goals in the first 4 league games, including his first career hat-trick in a 4-2 win over Spartak Moscow, one of the biggest fixtures in Russian football. He finished that campaign with 17 goals and around 12 assists across all competitions. 2 seasons, roughly 31 goals from midfield, plus a mountain of assists. Young Player of the Season, back-to-back. And here's what almost nobody outside Russia noticed. Ahead of the 2026-27 season, Lokomotiv gave him the number 10 shirt. Not just any number 10, the one worn by Dmitry Loskov, the club's legendary playmaker of the 90s and 2000s. In football, that's not a squad number change. That's a coronation. A club telling a 21-year-old, you are the heir to our greatest creative player. You are our identity now. So the picture is complete. A 2-footed problem for defenders, a futsal school brain, goals and assists in equal measure, and his boyhood club anointing him their new icon. In any Western European league, this player is a €60 million transfer saga with his own documentary crew. Instead, this is where it gets strange. Because all that interest I mentioned at the start, it was real, and it went nowhere. His agent said PSG was 95% done. Then PSG's advisor Luis Campos ran his analysis, and the club simply withdrew. Stopped watching. City couldn't move because of sanctions. Barcelona looked, considering Lewandowski's age, and didn't pull the trigger. One by one, the giants who could have made him a superstar found a reason, or were handed a reason to say no. And that string of rejections is exactly where this story stops being a highlight reel and starts being something sadder. Here's where I stop selling you the Wonder Kid and get honest about what we actually know and don't. First, the uncomfortable truth about the Russian Premier League. Yes, it has money and history. But is it a top 5 league? No. It sits well below the Premier League, La Liga, the Bundesliga, Serie A. Scoring 17 goals in Russia is not the same as scoring 17 in Spain, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you a narrative. So when I say the best midfielder Europe wasn't allowed to sign, I'm making a claim about potential and interest, not a proven claim that he'd dominate the Champions League tomorrow. He might. We genuinely don't know. And that not knowing is the whole problem. Because here's the plot twist that reframes everything. We keep calling him a victim of the blackout. But look closer at PSG. They didn't fail to see him. His agent said it was 95% done. Then Luis Campos, one of the shrewdest recruitment minds in the game, did the deep analysis, and PSG walked away. That is not a story about sanctions. That is a story about a top club looking hard at the actual player and deciding, on football grounds, no. So which is it? Is Batrakov a genuine elite talent the world was blocked from signing? Or is he a very good player in a weak league whose legend has been inflated precisely because nobody can easily verify it? The isolation cuts both ways. It doesn't just hide flaws from us, it hides them from a fair judgment entirely. A player nobody can test becomes a mirror. You see in him whatever you want to see. The optimists see a stolen superstar. The skeptics see a big fish in a frozen pond. And notice the money. When he finally did move, the fee was €25 million. Real money, but not superstar money. Not the €60 million the hype implied. The market, when it finally got to price him, priced him as a talented gamble, not a proven great. That number is the most honest verdict anyone has given him yet. Which brings us to where he actually landed. August 2026. Not the Etihad. Not Paris. Istanbul. On the 20th of August, Galatasaray announced it, a €25 million deal, plus add-ons, plus a 15% sell-on clause for Lokomotiv. a 5-year contract running to 2031, a reported net salary of €3.25 million a season. And a line that matters more than the money, Alexey Batrakov became the first Russian player in Galatasaray's 121-year history.
Merhaba Galatasaray, Alexey.
First, in over a century, and this is where the paradox resolves. Look at which club got him. Not one of the untouchable elite. Galatasaray, a proud, huge, but sanctions-agnostic club in a league happy to do business the rest of Europe won't. Turkey has quietly become the release valve for exactly this kind of player, the talent the top 5 leagues want but can't or won't reach. Galatasaray is the club that signs the stars nobody else has the nerve or the legal freedom to sign. So here's my verdict, and I'll stand behind it. Batrakov's move is the single clearest proof that football's transfer market is no longer a pure meritocracy. It never fully was, but this is naked. A player's ceiling is now set not only by his feet, but by his flag. Batrakov did everything right. 2 seasons of elite output, 1 club loyalty, the number 10 of a legend. And the reward the modern game gave him was a closed door in London, a cold shoulder in Paris, and a fallback in Istanbul. The move to Galatasaray isn't a triumph. It's a compromise dressed up as ambition, the best available exit from a locked room. But, and I promised honesty, let me concede the other side because it's strong. Maybe this is exactly right. Maybe Galatasaray, with Champions League football, is the perfect proving ground, big enough to test him against real European opponents, reachable enough to actually sign him. If he tears up the Super League, and then does damage in the Champions League, then Turkey wasn't his ceiling. It was his launch pad, and the giants who passed will look like fools. The €25 million gamble could become the bargain of the decade. That door isn't closed. It's just been moved to Istanbul. So let's go back to the start. The best midfielder Europe wasn't allowed to sign. Here's what I think this story really is, stripped of the romance and the hype. Alexey Batrakov is the human face of a strange new truth, that in modern football, being brilliant is no longer enough to be seen. There is an entire league frozen out of the global conversation, full of players aging in real time while the world looks away, and Batrakov is simply the first big name to find a crack in the wall and climb through it. The first fugitive from a forgotten football. And that should unsettle you a little. Because for every Batrakov who scores enough to force a €25 million exit to Istanbul, how many equally gifted players are sitting in that same blackout right now, running out of prime years, who will never get even that? Talent will never watch. Careers that happen entirely off camera. The blackout doesn't just hide one player. It hides a generation. Whether Batrakov becomes a genuine star or a cautionary tale about hype in a weak league, I honestly don't know, and anyone who claims certainty is guessing. But the fact that his ability was never the deciding factor in where he ended up, that tells you something true and a little sad about the game we love.